last day of the quarter. So what would you expect on the last day of the quarter? Well, today, we got nothing. I mean, it was literally dead flat. The Dow went up 0.85%, which really means not a whole lot. And in our portfolio, it's pretty much just dead even. It's gone down a little bit here, but both of them were up today, but pretty much break even statistically. As we went through kind of all the stocks that we own, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but none of them, I think, exceeded 4% really at anything. So, I mean, it's pretty much dead flat. I think there were a little bit more ones that were a 4% that went up than went down, but there wasn't really much there. So we're not going to really talk about any big movers or any big market segments. Basically, it's the end of the quarter. And for finance, it's kind of where the numbers play. And so people kind of usually play it close to the vest in general. Let's talk about a little bit about what we are doing in our portfolio today. So let's see, yesterday, we had these PBF and RHP we bought yesterday, so let's clear that out. I didn't clear that out. And then we had an order fall through for Texas Hospitality, which is fine, not a big deal. Just we're going to take a fresh look at these things every day. So with that being said, plugged in the numbers. Most of them didn't move, so we don't see a whole lot of movement today at all. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to take a fresh look at Velocity Financial. And if you remember yesterday's video, we talked about the main article on CNN Business's blurb where they talk about Dow futures was the fact that home sales are up, which means that mortgage applications have to be up because unless you're paying cash for a house, then, and maybe people are, but unless you're paying cash for a house, there's going to be mortgage applications. So with that being said, people lose their homes. People, want to get a better home. It could be any number of things. So that being said, Velocity is a company that works with Mr. Cooper, who cards face up on the table. I've actually had my mortgage with them, and they're an awesome platform. I mean, they're just super easy to view information and see trends, and it's a better portal than the mortgage we have right now. Got sold from Mr. Cooper, ironically, to Wells Fargo, which sucks, which they're terrible. It's like having a website from the year 2000. It's no good. So anyway, I thought, okay, well, this is, something I want to look at. So we looked at Velocity, and over here, we don't really have a name for it. Oh, we can just do that. We don't really have a name for it, but this is basically the margin requirement. So if we buy in margin, which we do, because if we're going to make money, it's better to use somebody else's money than to sit here and use our own money for the most part. I mean, I will use my own money, but it's the lazy way to do it. So it's at 100%, which basically means if I buy $1,000 in stock, I need to have $2,000 on hand to buy it. So I thought, okay, no big deal. We'll go ahead and put in a limit order for Velocity. And so we did that today, and we put a limit order and I'll walk you through how I got to this. Basically about $1,500. So we looked at Velocity. So let's go. There we go. So we looked at Velocity, and I kind of broke down the trend. So I don't know if they had a split or something happen here, but it was relatively flat for this period of time, went down, and then this stock just really is eager to move up if it can. We looked at that. It got up to 633 when everybody was looking good. Before the case numbers from all the protests popped in, even though the death numbers are really down. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Now it's down to 395, which is great. So I looked at today's number and basically, or for the week actually, and the lowest point it got was right here. Was it right here? It says 387. I did see, for the month, that's what it was, for 370. And I thought, okay, well, let's say we have a down day. Let's give ourselves some padding for somebody else to take the loss. So I thought, okay, it's at 370 at the lowest point. The lowest point for the month, and this was before the big jump. So we'll put it at 365 just because I always put it a little bit lower than that point. If for whatever reason the market goes up and I don't buy it, you know what? No, I'm not really worried about the problem if the market goes up. So, but if it goes down, it gives us an opportunity to get in there. So we had at 365 for 410 shares. Now, one of the things that also kind of played into my decision making on this was I looked at kind of the macro trends. And again, we're not going to get into like Zero Hedge numbers, which by the way is a great website if you want to. It doesn't mean I agree with them all the time, but it's a great website when you want to talk about micro trends. And I actually read an article on them this morning where they were talking about coronavirus numbers in the market and how we differ from US and Europe. But I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but if you want to go on their website today, there's a great article on that, zerohedge.com. And so basically what they're saying is that you had a bunch of people that were out, the states opened. The first people that are going to go out are not going to be the 70-year-olds. I mean, that's going to be obvious, right? It's going to be the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 35-year-olds. And the first place they're going to go, because they haven't had a chance to be social with anybody, is they're going to go out to bars, and they're going to go out to outdoor restaurants, and they're going to hang out with their friends. And so what happened is the case numbers went up for a few reasons. Number one, the case numbers doubled, and happened to be the testing numbers doubled. So that plays into it as well. But at the same time, you have people that don't really feel like, based on the feedback and the information they've gotten so far, that coronavirus doesn't really seriously affect young people unless you have a comorbidity, unless you have diabetes or pneumonia or asthma or something like that. And so unless that's the case, it's not really a big deal. So these people, maybe they went to the protest, maybe they went to the bar, maybe they were vandals. And you know what? There's some people that were protesting, and there's some people that were straight up vandals. And I can't believe that word isn't being used on TV on either side of the aisle, because it's the perfect word for it. And so what happens is they get tested, they become positive, or maybe one of their friends becomes tested, and then they have a contact tracer call them, and then that person, asks them to be tested, they tested, and then they come up as positive. But what happens is they're young, they're healthy. They probably had no clue that they even had the disease. And so the case numbers go up. Now, on top of that, one of the things I read today was that there in a lot of states, and it's not every state because every state has different rules, but a lot of the states, I shouldn't say a lot, a certain number of the states, because I don't know the number, how many of the states there are, if you go in and you have a test, like a nose swab test, and they say, hey, you're positive for coronavirus, number one, they count that as a test. But what normally happens, if you want to be negative, if you want to be considered recovered, they'll give you a test and it'll come back negative afterward. But they don't count you as recovered unless you take a second test that shows you're negative. But the thing is, the reason they do that is because they don't want a false negative, because they're fearing that the test might be wrong. But on the front end, if you test positive, they never give you a second test to see if that test was wrong. So what happens is, if you have if you are positive, if you actually have coronavirus, you get counted as it. But if you're a false positive, you also get counted on it. So statistically speaking, they're skewing the results, and I'm kind of a stats guy. You're skewing the results to favor one outcome versus the other, because you're going to keep people on. You're only going to, if they even trip the positive test once, they're positive. And we're not going to test them twice because we don't want to see that number. If that number doesn't happen, then they're not positive anymore. So you're skewing the number toward positive tests. But then if you want to call somebody negative, they come back negative after they've had it. Oh, well, we don't believe that yet. We need you to take another one. So they want you to be on the positive roll longer. It's going to take more work for you to be off the positive roll and less work to go on the positive roll. So as a result, those numbers are going to go up. Secondarily, let's just presume that all the numbers are accurate, which they are not, but let's say they're accurate. The average age of a coronavirus patient went from like 68 years old to like 35 years old. And so what's happening is, and we're going to talk how this relates to velocity, what happens is you have all these people test positive, whether they had it or not. Plus there's people, I didn't even talk about this, and they talked about this in the Zero Hedge article, how if the doctor thinks that you have coronavirus, so let's say that you have pneumonia or a cough or trouble breathing or anything like that, and they don't test you, they will consider, in certain states, they will consider you a COVID-19 positive patient, even without any clinical proof that you have it whatsoever. So the numbers go up, and this has been feeding into the stock market for the last week and a half, where things have gone down and people are pessimistic. The numbers are going up. Is it the second wave? Is Texas going to get hit as hard as New York was? What happens is all the stats that I'm looking at are saying that these numbers are skewing the test numbers, the positivity numbers up. But every metric that shows that nobody's going to the hospital is down. So like the hospital use here in San Diego County, there's 6,000 hospital beds, and there were like 300 total that were used for COVID. So they're doing fine. They're scheduling elective surgeries. They're just, it's not something where it's not even coming close to straining the hospitals whatsoever. And even in Texas, where they said, oh, they're coming up to 100% in the ICU. Well, I actually saw the guy interviewed. He's like, we're always at 100% in the ICU because we're going to fill the ICU no matter what. We're going to take the person that we can use the ICU the most, who's not in the ICU, and move them in there if at all possible, because they can always switch them out. If you have somebody that's not too serious, they'll switch them out. And so the reason this is important is because if you look at all these stats on a macro level and all these facts, you got to understand that it's pointing to the fact that, and I read this today too. I read a lot this morning. That they said the next 6 or 7 days is going to be crucial because you have these people testing positive, right? But that's your leading indicator. And then that feeds into maybe a week later where they go into the hospital, and maybe a week later they die. And they said basically in the next few days, maybe a week, that if we don't see the hospitalization and death numbers go up, it means these people are clearing out. They're positive, but there's nothing else happening. In other words, the danger has passed. And once that happens, you're going to see the market take off because you're going to realize it was a false alarm. Now, for the honest media, it was a false alarm. For the shady media, it's going to be crying wolf yet again. Because make no mistake, I used to work in media. There's a segment of the media that is rooting against this economy because they don't want the president reelected. If the economy is great, that's his number one argument for reelection. And they just don't want any part of that. So with velocity, it's important because these are mortgage applications, not only for the people applying who are going to be refining their mortgages because the rates are low, and that's kind of the other factor we didn't talk about, but also for the banks and the finance companies to feel good that you're not going to see this massive wave of layoffs coming, and they're going to be more likely to, kind of approve a mortgage at whatever the prevailing market rate is. So that being said, that is why I placed that buy today. So right now, kind of what we're looking at going forward, I didn't think I had a whole lot to talk about today. Apparently I did. If the market goes down, we're going to buy velocity, and we're doing good. We have a great portfolio. In fact, I was trying to figure out what to sell if I could free up some money. And to be fair, there's nothing that really jumped up. I mean, usually I'll take whatever the lowest percentage is here, but that's UCO, and there's no way I'm dumping UCO because that is poised to jump. At that point, I looked at other single-digit ones we had here. What did we have here? RHP, I just bought it. Ryman Hospitality Group. I'm not selling that. I just bought PBF, and I'm not doing that. MFA, I was thinking about it, but then I'm like, no way. Like this has a big upside, and I kind of want to give this one a chance to go up. And after that, we had 10% at GNC, and I'm not touching that. Basically, in the next week for GNC, I'm going to give it a chance to pop because that's what happened with Hertz and with Latin American Airlines after they filed for bankruptcy. It popped really big, and we have a limit sell for that. Or I'm just going to sell it, and I don't really care. If I take a loss, break even, have a small gain, I don't really care. So we're sitting pretty right now. With that being said, we're still on pace for about $310,000 for what we own. Another $6,000 for the limit order for velocity we just did. So we are on pace for $316,000. All right, so that being said, take a look at CNN. And again, these are always early because it's early day and it changes. And lately, it's actually flip-flopped. They've usually been trendy. Like if it's been low negative, it kind of builds negative. Or, if it gets to like $50 to $60, $70 negative, it kind of builds negative, and positive, it's the same thing. But this one's building a little bit negative. But last night, I kept looking at it. It kept flip-flopping back and forth. And surprise, surprise, the market's dead even. So which one of them was right, the negative or the positive? Well, both. And then their headline, the economy's falling apart, but Wall Street has its best quarter in decades. Again, CNN, let's be fair, they don't like President Trump. They're going to be spending this propaganda. And I studied propaganda in college. It was I was an advertising major. That's what we learned, how to use propaganda. but Wall Street has its best quarter in decades. So it's like the poor people aren't doing well, the rich people are. That's really what they're saying here. But in the end, it really doesn't matter. We're looking at Wall Street. We're looking at the opportunity to make some money, to buy a new house, to buy a new car, to pay off your debts, to give yourself an opportunity to be financially independent or to buy things that you've never had before. So with that being said, tomorrow we'll take a look and see what we have going on. The long and short of it is if it goes down, we'll get velocity, hopefully. And if it goes up, Hufflin Mifflin is close to being a limit order sell. If that's the case, we'll let that sell and reinvest that money. And RDI, I'm not sure when that's going to hit. Probably on a big positive day, it'll jump up, but it only needs 26 cents to jump. And then the other ones probably aren't going to happen soon, but who knows? GNC could pop any day. So with that being said, we will see you tomorrow. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.